So do you trust your tech? And if you ask for your etching to be done in the lab, and then obviously we ultrasonic clean everything here, but you're going to hold me accountable for your bond because I've done the etch, but then you've tried it in and you've had to re-etch. I don't think your tech should ever be accountable for your bond. I think that should be down to yourselves. And when it comes to etching, again, back to communication. Tell me what you want and I'll do it.
When I was a foundation dentist, my training program director was Raj Ratan, who some of you may have heard of. His speeches, his stories are famous in the dental circles. He was a great guy and he gave some really good advice to me. He said, Jazz, make sure you pick your technician very carefully because an average dentist with a good technician can go very far. Hello Protrusive, I'm Jazz Galati and welcome to this episode about 5 things your technician wish you knew. This episode is all about some things that we can learn as dentists from our buddies, the technicians, who honestly, they work so hard and do such a great job for us, such an important job, you know? We're the ones who take that final photo and upload it to social media and we get all the accolades and the applause. But it was actually the technician who made those veneers or the technician who made that beautiful crown and made it blend in with all that natural anatomy. So I think technicians need to get the praise that they deserve. And I'm hoping this episode, they can actually contribute in another way. I.e., I want Graham, who's the technician today, Graham Entwhistle, I want him to share his frustrations with us. I want to basically learn what it is that we can improve so that it makes our technicians' lives easier and produce better work for us overall. So I actually didn't send him any questions in advance of this episode. I just said, just run through your 5 pet hates or 5 things that you wish dentists knew. And that's how this episode was born. So before we join Graham and what he has to say on those 5 points and 5 lessons, I want to share a very relevant protrusive dental pearl with you. It's about how we can communicate with technicians better. Now, we live in an era of WhatsApp and Instagram, then why don't we use it? In fact, the way I like to communicate with some of my technicians is via WhatsApp. And on WhatsApp, I can send not only voice recordings and photos, but I can actually show him videos of my patient smiling, speaking, so they can check the phonetics. And sometimes for my splints, if there's an issue with one of my splints, I will make a video and I'll send it to my technician and say, hey, can you please make sure that the OVD is increased or decreased or whatever. So I think that is the highest clarity, a highest level of communication we can have. It's so much better and less wordy than an email, which we used to do. So I am a big fan of doing videos for communication. So I would encourage you all to do that. Now, if you want to go to the next level, I have mentioned it before in that episode with Finlay Sutton on chrome dentures. If you haven't checked that one out already, please do. Sensational content from Finlay in that one. We talked about the use of something called Loom, which is loom.com. And it's a website where you can record your screen and record your video with a presentation, for example, and you can share that very easily with other dentists, your patients, technicians, or whatever. Now, sometimes if you're doing digital smile design and you want to involve your technician in it, then if you go to Loom and if you start recording the Photoshop smile design or start adding your lines in or lens in, you can actually do that while the video screen is recording and you can be speaking over it so your voice is also recorded. That way, it's another dimension of giving your technician videos and you giving your voice instructions for how you want the future work to be. So again, the level of communication is so much higher. And one thing I was taught many years ago is when you do videos for your technicians, you could put your emotions, your anger, your frustrations, your desperation for things to go right in that video, and it makes it so much more human. So I hope you enjoyed that, Pearl, and let's join Graham Entwhistle and 5 things the technician wished you knew. Graham Entwhistle, welcome to the Protrusive Dental Podcast. How are you, my friend?
I'm very good, thank you. I've been had a hectic day, but nice to be settled down and just chilling, talking to you.
Well, I appreciate you joining me this evening, and you are away from your family now. If I remember correctly, you have 5 kids?
Yeah, literally just turned 5 children. We had a baby girl on New Year's Eve, so yeah, hopefully the last one of the clan.
Well, congratulations for the latest edition. Tell me about, was it a boy or a girl?
It's a girl. Our first one was a girl and our last one's a girl. So the rest are all boys in between. If I'd had any more boys, I think I would have taken a little one-way ticket somewhere.
What's her name? The latest addition to the clan?
Hope. I think it's quite suiting for the times that we're living in, as well as being a beautiful name.
This podcast itself it's more where you get to vent your frustrations in a good way, in a banter way. Obviously, I'm gonna make sure you don't lose any clients and stuff, but like everything that technicians ever wanted dentists to know. But before we get to that, I just want to, for you to give an introduction about yourself. Tell us about where you work, how long you've been a technician for, what your main interests are in that sort of field.
I'm a one-man band, basically. I own my own lab. It's just me. I do everything start to finish on my own. I started Trueform Dental up in Harley Street originally with a friend of mine up at 152 under Martin Schaller. And he got rich on Bitcoin and decided that he was going to take some time off, and I took the brand and I just brought it home pretty much. So I'm now in East Sussex, close to my family. I decided that I was never going to lead the sort of way that I've seen many technicians do, and not see much of their family, and spend all the time in London in basements, and especially in the West End, everyone's mainly in basements unless you're paying through the roof for rent. I decided to make the journey home, and I started almost from scratch. I had one client who joined me right from the very start, and I've built from there really. So I'm very grateful she joined me.
Well, that's a cool story, but I want to touch on that actually. As a father myself, got one kid, and he's so energetic, and I want to give him a lot of my time where I can, but it's a busy lifestyle we live as dentists and as technicians. How do you do it with 5 kids?
It's ridiculously hard work, and it's hard to plan because as a technician, we don't have a booking in sheet or whatever, where you've got your patients coming in at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. We haven't got that. So some days we've got nothing coming through the front door. And as a technician, you just start worrying, sort of like, I've had no phone calls, no cases come in, no impressions, no Artero or Trios scans. It's just like, what's happening? And all of a sudden on Thursday, you get this absolute blockload of work comes through the door, and you're just like, right, I'm expected to do all of this now, and I've lost 3 days work, pretty much. But the thing is, even if you've got a little dribble of work in the lab, if you're not there getting it done, then that happens, and then you find yourself under the cosh. And that's when you just start working ridiculous hours. So, just stick with it, keep going, and the work will turn up on your front doorstep.
I never appreciate it. I mean, thank you for giving us that insight. I never actually thought about it in that way, especially as a solo technician yourself. I can now, put myself in your shoes and appreciate that. Yeah, work comes when it comes. And sometimes you might have quieter days, and sometimes it might come all at once. So, kudos to you for raising a family of beautiful 5 kids, including Hope. So that's amazing, man. I'm so happy for you. As a father, it's so tough, especially in your industry. So hats off and keep going, my friend. Keep doing the time for both family and for profession. But this episode is going to be all about profession. So give it to us, Graham. Don't hold back. The 5 things that you wish dentists would know or start doing better. Start with number 1. What is your biggest frustration with dentists?
The first thing and foremost is the communication that you get with dentists. And it's not always there. Some are really good at it and some are really dismally poor. And, you've got no control over that really sometimes. And, you might get a lab ticket. You've got no phone call, nothing like to tell you that the work's going to arrive. You get the lab slip and it says Emax shade C2. And that's it. That's the detail that you've got. With a little tooth notation. Most of the time, that little return date box is filled, but it's not always filled. And it's just like, so already I feel like I've got to make a phone call on the job. And it's just like, I haven't got the time to make like 10 phone calls, it's like just based on the lack of information that we've got. So, the lab tickets, I'm quite guilty. I need to update my lab ticket because it doesn't ask for enough detail. I ask for a shade, a stump shade. It would be nice to get some sort of patient expectation from that sheet and any information on, whether there's any adjacent restorations, because trying to match an Emax, for instance, to a porcelain bonded crown can be really quite difficult. And you choosing the right ingots, etc., can be really difficult on that sort of side of things.
I guess the ideal dentist for you would be, with the whole date thing, totally. They should always be giving you a date because It's just how the world works. But when it comes to the lack of information in terms of all they said is A3 Emax and that's it, that sometimes it might be because, yes, it might be because the dentist may not feel they need to give any more than that, then fine, we can discuss that. But it might be actually due to a lack of knowledge from a dentist, right? So let's educate them right now. In 1 minute, what additional information can they give you with that prescription that will really, really help you?
Any sort of additional features of the teeth, whether you want a heavy contact, a light contact, or contact point. Every dentist kind of has their own way of doing things. So especially if you're a new client or we haven't done any work together or haven't done much work together, as much detail as you can put onto those lab sheets, the better. Obviously, I've done crowns where I've just had a shade and I've done it and I've pressed it in a like medium translucent ingot, for instance, and the core has been grey. You haven't told me that, but you expect the remake done for free. And it's just like, well, hang on a minute, is it really my fault? I don't mind meeting you halfway, as soon as it's a first time incident. But if it happens again, then I'm going to have to charge you full price, So it's all time taken out from myself. And like I said, about other details, like lab return dates, if they're not there, I have to ring you up. And sometimes I get a return date and it's a week and I ask for 2 weeks, but you haven't phoned me up to ask me about that. So I've now got to make that phone call again to see if I can actually squeeze that in.
Well, 3 things we can learn from that in reverse order. One is if you want a quicker turnaround, it's just common courtesy to call your lab and almost like book it in. Like, hey, heads up, in 3 days time, impressions coming. I want a 1 week turnaround. It gives you an opportunity, Graham, to actually structure it and fit it into the right slot so it gets the right time. So that's for sure. In terms of the ingots, like some dentists might be listening to this, young dentists, and they might not be familiar with this, Graham. It's not actually common knowledge. A lot of dentists don't know that Emax or lithium disilicate from Emax, from Ivoclar, it comes in different ingots. So like there's high opacity, medium translucency, low translucency, there's 5. So sometimes maybe if you haven't heard about this, make this episode the turning point where you're going to go and find out that information. Maybe I'll link to something on the Ivoclar website for that, which will be good because that will help your technician. And the third thing we can learn from what you just said there is give an occlusal prescription. It's not okay to just say, this is the shade, this is the crown. It helps the technician to say there are shim stock holds on these teeth. Put the crown lightly in occlusion in MIP with shim stock, and then you have something to follow as an occlusal prescription. Do you think I've summarized that well?
Yeah, I think that's quite a fair summarization, really, especially if you're looking for a top-end job. If you want everything just to drop in place, and I'll come on to this a bit later on, especially when you're just dropping things into place. Some of my clients, they like just to have everything ready and they pop it in and they don't have to touch anything. But that's because they've given me the right details or we've been working together for a long time. But yeah, some dentists, obviously, you've got to try these crowns in first, make any adjustments that you might have had. And, every dentist's got their own way of doing their own impressions. They've got their own ways of doing their temporaries. And sometimes, the temporaries are swelling, and pushing the adjacent teeth slightly apart, or they're just shy of that. So, then the restoration that I've made doesn't quite fit as well as it should. But, we'll touch some of this as we go along.
I'm going to flip it around for you, Graham. And this is not against you because the fascinating thing about this podcast recording is, and with respect to you, Graham, I really appreciate that you're a solo worker. I know you're a busy guy. I know you got lots of clients and stuff. And if anyone wants to use you, great. But I know that's not why you're on here today. I think you're on here because you're passionate. And I've got you on because you're a passionate technician. You haven't got anything to sell. And that's why I want to bring you on. And it's great we can have this discussion. But I haven't used you yet. And that's not to say I might not use you in the future. I haven't used you before. But so this is not an attack on you. But recently, I sent a reservoir bridge to a lab and I wrote my prescription, and I can tell you now, it's a long essay I write for these reservoir bridges because I want them done specifically. So I am almost like a dream client for you with the information that I give, but I wanted the technician to cover over the premolar with the reservoir bridge retainer. And I gave that very clearly in prescription, but sometimes it doesn't come back. And then I have to send it back to labs like, no, do what I said. So sometimes technicians, when we give these detailed sort of descriptions and whatnot, sometimes technicians won't read it. They will not follow our instructions. So that's me airing out our frustration. What do you have to say to that?
Well, I suppose it depends on where you're sending your work. If you send it to a sole trader like myself, And the contact's good. I mean, I use a lot of WhatsApp. If I've got anything that I want to do differently to your sheet, I will use WhatsApp and leave a paper trail. I'll ask you the questions. You'll verify it with me. If you verify it and say, yeah, that's okay, I've then got it in writing. So when it comes to fit and you tell me, oh, I asked for this different, I'll just be like, well, actually, we said this. And that's what it's about. It's about everyone taking responsibility, having that communication in place. But yeah, if you're going to send it to sort of a lab with...
So what I like about that, Graham, is that you said about the WhatsApp, right? So you would send the framework, for example, right? But, you maybe send a photo or a video of the framework?
Yes, I'll send photographs, anything like that. Although with WhatsApp recently, I know the privacy is changing, so I'm going to probably have to swap that as well. But yes, you leave a paper trail. You can send pictures. You can send a video if you need to give someone a little walkthrough or a talk of what it is actually you're looking at and why you can't do it that way, and give someone a justification for doing or suggesting to do what you're doing. That's
a great one. So if you have a technician that you work closely with, to exchange on WhatsApp is really good.
Yes, I feel from your point of view, if you send some work to a larger lab, for instance, you've got 4 or 5 technicians there, sometimes things can get lost in translation, and that's where you end up not getting exactly what you wanted.
I do agree with you, Graham. I think that's what it was. But it got sorted in time for the patient. But it's just an opportunity to have that kind of discussion with you, buddy. Hit me with number 2.
So number 2 is kind of to do with material choices and prepping. So basically, does your prep accommodate the material choice for your restoration that you've chosen for that? And I say this because going back to Emax again, unfortunately, Emax does not like it doesn't like sharp edges, and it doesn't like knife edge preparations. So and that's down to mainly the particle size of the Emax particles, and if you polish them down, trying to taper it in nicely so you haven't got a step, sometimes because the particle size is quite large compared to zirconia, for instance, you can just polish it away, and then you end up shy at the margins, and you end up with cracking, and
So yeah, absolutely. So as dentists, we should be having a better command over materials. But you know what, Graham? Sometimes it's a tough call. I say that, but I think there are some dentists out there who may begin a prep of a tooth for a crown, and they haven't already decided in their head which material the crown will be. And I'm guilty of this in the past. When I was a newly qualified dentist and through lack of experience, I'd sometimes start prepping and I'd be thinking, I'll see what the prep looks like at the end. And it was a lack of experience, lack of knowledge at the time. Many years fast forward, that you have to begin with the end in mind, because only then can you create the correct preparation. So as a sweeping statement, Emax, you summarized it beautifully, no feather edges and no sharp internal line angles and sharp bits in general. So make sure it's nice, smooth and flowing. Any other tips you want to give for any other material?
So when it comes to bonded crowns as well, if you're looking at leaving knife edge margins, don't expect a nice butt fit with the ceramic. You will probably end up with a slight grey line. So unless you chamfer these things or give us a porcelain butt fit margin, then don't expect a lovely looking fit onto the model. So for instance, if you've got a bonded crown and you're doing it super gingival, try and give us a little ledge, and then we can blend the restoration in nicely without any grey areas showing through.
How much space do you want at that margin, ideally, to be able to get a more aesthetic result, to be able to not get the grey show through?
So with a metal ceramic, I would say at least 1.3 millimeters at that margin. That's my preference. But with zirconia, 0.5, Emax, 0.5 as well, really. And then you can get a nice pressing, seats there flush, and you get no defects if you've got a good technician who knows what they're doing.
And with that zirconia, we said 0.5, would that be left monolithic, or would you always layer it? Any advice on that?
I don't know. The materials these days, especially over the last few years, the materials have come on leaps and bounds. So we've now got all these almost layered zirconias within themselves. So they're multi-layered. So you've got the core and the enamel, and dependent on how they're sat in the disc and they're in the software themselves, You can get some really nice results. So on the original multi-layer, though, I would say that, you had a graduation line, but now this is kind of tapering out and you get some really nice ones coming through and they're blended really nicely. So I tend to use something called Adite for quite a few of my restorations, and it's a bit softer on the occlusal compared to some of the really hard zirconias that are out there. So it depends on the lab you're using. You've really got to ask them what zirconias they really use and what they're suitable for. So again, this comes down to communication. So I tend to use some really hard zirconias for bridge works, and I tend not to go past 2 pontics together as well. So it'd be abutment, pontic. If there's another pontic, you can't have a zirc from me. It's going to be a bonded bridge all day long if you're going to go for a bridge. Although I still think fixed bridges, they always fail over time. But that's just my point of view as well.
Amazing. Great points there. And one thing I want to add on for the dentist listening to this is grooves and slots, generally a no-no for zirconia. I think you should go for more rounded hollows than actual traditional slots, which are better suited for metalwork and gold. Would you agree with that, Graham?
I agree, especially with the smaller style slots. You've got to think at the end of the day, the zirconia is always milled. So you've got to think all these little tools that go in and mill out, they only get to certain sizes. And obviously, if they're slightly blunt and they don't quite get in there, then it doesn't fit down quite properly. And then the technician's got to ream it all out. Next thing you know, it's loose and it's just like wobbling everywhere. So it's not really ideal to put all the grooves in. Just something nice and almost parallel. Just a couple of degrees, like a custom abutment, for instance, would be ideal for a zirconia.
Amazing. I've enjoyed those two so far. Material choice as well, covered. Number 3, hit us, Graham. What are the next frustrations that you want to ease out with dentists?
So your impressions, almost everything. You can be great and spectacular at your prepping, but if your impressions don't match that sort of standard, then unfortunately your lab work's going to come back and be nowhere near that standard. So please always check your impressions for any distortions or drags, or if you're not getting to grips with certain types of light body and putty sort of impressions, why not try if the situation suits it, why not try Improgam? That's one thing that I have never had problems with. If I've had an Improgam impression given to me, that prep is always pretty much spot on. So yeah. What
are the most common errors that you would get from impressions? You mentioned a few there, but what is the biggest bugbear?
Biggest bugbear. There's a few things really, and it just depends on expectation from yourselves as dentists. Lots of people hate triple trays, for instance, and some people love them. But I would say they're great and they've got their place in dentistry, and they can be used to good effect. But don't always expect your final fit to be perfect, because obviously you haven't got all the excursions of the whole arch, and there's all the occlusal function is not there for you to see or use. So if you can use a triple tray, don't expect the occlusion to be smack on, but everything else should be pretty
well. I think the internal fit would be fine there. It's more about like you said, the excursions with triple trays, which may not be on point. Well, there's a live stream I did, and people can watch it on Instagram on triple trays, so you can check that out. Sorry, Graham, I interjected.
It's the other thing is mainly drags, especially around the preps and adjacent teeth as well. Sometimes it can affect the emergence profile, because the drags come down off the adjacent tooth and your contacts as well. So if you check your impression, you probably always check your prep, but do you check those adjacent teeth? So for the contacts, if you've got a drag on that, then obviously I'm playing guess who with you, and you could end up being shy of the contact at the fit with the patient.
A really good tip I learned once was, when you're taking your final definitive impression, let's say you've got multiple preps, is all around, if you've got some big undercuts, big embrasure spaces between the molars, block them out with either wax or PTFE tape, anything you can to get a better path of withdrawal that's not going to put stress on your light body. And that is a good thing that, I think Jason Smithson taught me that. So I just wanted to just throw that in there for the dentist listening, because that will help to get a better impression, less distortions, less resistance to removing, and then less of the sort of breakdown of that impression material, I think.
That's a nice tip. But also when you're doing sort of like overlays and onlays, the detail underneath your prep line is also very important, because if you want me to keep the harmony of the natural tooth that's already there and bring it back to kind of its normal life position, then obviously that detail is also crucial. So yeah, it depends on how good a job you would like done of the case.
Obviously, with the onlays, we want to be super gingival, because we should be, especially if they're Emax onlays, we should be doing them ideally with ideal isolation under rubber dam. So we would be super gingival, or maybe equigingival, or deep margin elevation, that kind of stuff. So in those cases, yes, it's important to give you as much detail beyond the margin so you can get that proper emergence profile. So totally agree with you on that as well. Number 4, we're doing well for time, Graham. I'm impressed.
Are we? How long have we been going for?
25 minutes, and this is good. I was worried that, you'd be ranting and then complaining about us dentists all day long.
I'm not here to complain. I'm just here to give you guys some pointers, and...
No, I appreciate that. You are helping us so much. Please keep going.
So number 4 is shade guides and shade taking. So say, for instance, you've got a shade guide. It's a generic Vita Classical, just like my one, but it might not be like my one. Your one could be 10 years old. You might have left it in the sunlight for a while, and these things discolor over time. So not every shade guide matches another shade guide. So it helps if you, for instance, I try and supply my dentist with a shade guide that belongs to the lab and also matches the materials that I use. So it becomes easier then to match these things up. But obviously, if you leave these things in random places, especially if they're made from acrylic, they will discolor over time. So yeah, before you bin your technician, see how old your shade guide is and see if it matches up to your technician's one. Give them a chance.
When you send your clients these shade guides, do you send them the generic ones, or do you actually send like samples of porcelain, like from the porcelain that you use? Is that something that you do?
Well, it's close to that. I would love to be able to spend the time giving everyone the porcelain firing and do a porcelain firing of every shade, but I don't have the time for that, unfortunately. But what I do is the company, I use GC products. I use lots of them, and it's quite a generic feel across the materials. Everything's got the same name, whether it's like Lissy or whether it's metal ceramic or whether I'm using Gradia Plus. Everything has got the same name and it's got pretty much the same colour. So if I give everyone a set of shade tabs for that and they pick a generic shade and then they pick an enamel to go with that, then that's great, because I know then I've got to match maybe an A3 enamel with the A2 shades, and we can get better results than you can a generic Vita Classical shade guide. And obviously, if there's any internal details, I'll give you a whole load of colours that are on there. Just pick out a shade tab, like if you're looking through, you see the colour in the tooth, and instantly, if your eyes have seen that colour, that's true. Pick it out and put it in the bag or put it in a box, because if you start looking again, you'll actually find that your eyes trick you and tell you that colour's not there. So you look on the next one, you pick out the next one thinking, yeah, it's that one, and it probably was the one before, because that's what your eyes have seen first. Your eyes are drawn to it. That's true. So hopefully there's a couple of tips there for you.
There certainly are. Have you dabbled with the eLab protocol?
I haven't actually. I do everything myself. I'll go and take shades. I don't mind taking a road trip as long as it's not too often. But a lot of photography really helps in the right type of light, and obviously you're holding your shade tabs up against the adjacent tooth that you want to kind of match to, not the temporary that you've got in there. And also talking about, if you're already taking a shade match or a shade tab with a temporary there, you're probably wrong. You should take the shade first before the teeth are dehydrated. Otherwise you get a shade discrepancy at the end. So if you take your shade first, then that's the best way to do that. take some pictures with some shade tabs in there, and obviously if there's internal details, take some nice pictures, tell me the random colours that you've seen in there, and I can mimic that to the best of my ability. And generally I've got a good success rate, and I've had the E-Lab and others don't have the success rate that they maybe should have, so overrated software.
Brilliant. No, I appreciate that. And I just wanted to give a dentist a little tip on composite work, actually. To shade guides that we have for composite, a lot of them are made of acrylic, so they're not true representations of the composite itself. So I've actually got a little kit I got from Steel Italiano. You can actually make your own custom shade guide with a dentine and enamel using whichever composite system you want. I haven't actually built them yet because I still haven't found my go-to composite yet. I'm still in that phase where I love my Genial. I use it, but I'm getting to that stage where it's going to be out of date soon. I bought it some years ago now, and I also want to use what my principals will buy me as well. But I think as a practice, we switch to one, and then we all like that system. It'll just work better. So I'm waiting. I'm almost there. But that's one system that I like to use to master that system, and then I'm going to be making these custom shade guides. So I'm quite excited to get that done. Sounds very geeky, I know, but yeah, just that's why I rely so heavily on putting little buttons of composite and curing them before I choose my shade, because that gives me so much more information than an acrylic shade guide would do. So I just want to throw that in there for the dentist. And then number 5, my friend Graham, please tell us, what is your final frustration with dentists? What do you wish that we all did better?
I was actually talking about this with a fellow technician the other day as part of my support network, Great Tech. But we were talking about etching restorations for your dentist. And why? Why do we do it? Why do people ask for it to be etched? Now, either you've got a great trust with your technician, like I was talking about earlier. I've got a couple of clients who just like to just plop them in, without even checking. So that's fine. If you want them etched, then I expect you to be pretty much doing that. But if you ask for them etched and then you go and try it in the mouth and you make some adjustments and you take it out, and then that etch layer is then compromised. So you then have to clean it all off yourself and re-etch it. And then at this point, you can over-etch and you can end up with a really gravelly, grainy fit surface. And, depending on the translucency of the material that you're using, it can start having an effect on the actual shade and, colour of the restoration. So do you trust your tech? And if you ask for your etching to be done in the lab, and then obviously we ultrasonic clean everything here, but you're going to hold me accountable for your bond because I've done the etch, but then you've tried it in and you've had to re-etch. I don't think your tech should ever be accountable for your bond. I think that should be down to yourselves. And when it comes to etching, again, back to communication. Tell me what you want and I'll do it. And
I think it's good to be prescriptive with the etching as well, because what I like to tell my technicians to do is I will say use 5% hydrofluoric acid for 20 seconds as per the protocol that I learned and I use. I hope I'm not putting you on the spot too much, but is that the concentration? Is that the time that you're doing, or do you follow a different protocol as per manufacturer guidelines?
It depends on the manufacturer guidelines or the acid that you've got yourself. So the acid etch always comes with its own set of instructions. So it's generally about 20 seconds. I do all of mine for 20 seconds, but some are 30. So I suppose it depends on the concentration of the etch liquid that you've got yourself. And obviously these have a time span as well, and they either get stronger or weaker over time. So.
I respect that massively, and I'm glad you do that, because there was a technician or a chain of technicians I was using some years ago, and the onlays would come back and they'd look like super etched. They look like really chalky. And I emailed saying, which concentration are you using? How long are you using for? Are you following my instructions? I didn't tell them what my instructions were because I write them in every case. And I said, how long are you doing it for? And they emailed back a photo of the etch. And they said, yeah, we usually do it for about 60 to 90 seconds. I'm like, no, you're over etching it. So totally it's worth, exactly. It's totally worth picking up the phone, emailing and just confirming. Make sure that every technician within that chain knows, what it is that you want. So that I think the ideal way is exactly how you said it. If you're going to be anal about bonding, which we should be anal about bonding, then perhaps it's time to do your own etching.
Yes, yeah, I agree. If you want to be 100% in control, do it yourself. That's the only way to do your job properly, especially if you want to do your try-in of the crown first. You should be in control of that, and just let your lab send it to you, cleaned, steam cleaned, or in the ultrasonic.
Amazing. Graham, that's it. That's a 5. And I really appreciate it that we did it in a really good time, actually. This will make for a very listenable episode. Some of my episodes were mammoth 90-minute ones, and I sometimes feel bad for the listeners. So this could be great. I think what we've covered was really impactful. I think it was really fresh. I think it was a real opportunity for technician and dentist to sit down and just talk things out. And I'm hoping that hundreds, thousands of dentists out there will now be in a position to pick up the phone, have a better relationship with their technician, and hopefully you picked up a nugget or two from Graham and myself to improve your technical work Monday morning.
I do have one more nugget if you want it. I've missed it out.
Please, let's have it.
So if you're interested, it goes back to what you're prepping, basically. So it's about emergence profiles and your contact areas. Now, we did touch this contact area thing earlier. Now, sometimes you get an overlay that comes into the lab and they want their contact areas, nice and, but then again, you find yourself that the gap's quite large between the sort of like mesial contact point, but then you've got a really, really high prep line. So trying to get it across to that, you'd end up with a big over contouring, creating a food trap, which is probably what helped cause the problem that this tooth's in trouble for in the first place. Now, the tip that I've got is if you drop all these distal and mesial margins lower, you can change the emergence profile of that tooth to then come up and butt against the contact nicely. So, that would help myself and yourselves no ends if you can pick up and do all of that.
That's a fantastic tip there, and I'm going to make it extra tangible for the young dentists who may not have got that. I think you explained it well. I think if I was 1 or 2 year qualified, and I might have thought, I don't understand what that quite means maybe. And basically, imagine your crown comes back, or an onlay comes back, an overlay comes back, and there's a big distance between your prep and the tooth behind. But in the situation that you described, you get like almost a pregnant appearance of your overlay because it has to stretch all that way. But like you said, if you prep a little bit more south, a little bit more gingival, it allows you to get a less pregnant looking contact that actually has a better emergence, hence the term emergence. So that, Graham, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I think, when we come to prep and looking at our contacts that we're hoping to achieve, these contact areas, it will be so much better now. So, Graham, with that, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your time. And thanks for following. As a technician, I mean, when I made my podcast, I never thought that technicians would listen. So honestly, it's so flattering. And I really appreciate you being a supporter of the podcast. And I wish you and your family all the best. It's amazing, this busy life you live. And I'm so happy that you're able to give up some of your time to join me today.
Yeah, that's been great to come on. It's been nice just to have a little change of what I do from day to day. I'm lucky as a technician. I get to have breakfast with my kids because obviously I work just up the road from where I live. So I get to pop in and out almost as and when I like, which is nice. But, just to have something different in the current climate is really nice for me to do as well.
Are you in a position to accept more clients? I know you're very busy, but, some people might have listened to this today and thought, you know what? This Graham guy, he sounds really nice. He sounds really good. I'd like to send him some cases. Would you mind dropping me your details so I can put it on the website? Graham, is that all right?
Yeah, you can put Trueform Dental up on the website. I'm on Instagram, obviously. That's probably my primary source, although I do have a website. I'll give that to you afterwards. But yeah, I do have some limited space for some clientele. So anyone who's interested, I like to focus on quality, and that's what I'm about. Everything is done by myself, and if I can't do it...
Yeah, anyone locally to you, or even obviously you can accept scans and stuff, but anyone local to you to have that relationship that can visit you as well, that'd be a really good opportunity for a dentist who's keen, who's looking for that technician. So definitely check out Graham. It's at Trueform Dental. And again, I will link that in the show notes on protrusive.co.uk. Graham, thanks so much.
No problems, Jez. Have a nice evening.
Thank you so much for listening all the way to the end. I hope Graham brought you some value there. If you want to check out his profile, I'll put it on the website, so you can go to protrusive.co.uk, find this episode, and I'll put a link to all his profiles, his lab. I know he's super busy, so he probably can't accept too many more clients, but I'm sure he'll be happy to help you out where he can. I know I've mentioned it before, but we are having a Protrusive Dental Community or Protruserati WhatsApp group. If you want to be in on this, you got to join the Protrusive Dental Community Facebook group if you can. Just search it on Facebook. And once you're in there, there's a whole thread about the upcoming WhatsApp group. You just put your your mobile number there, and I'll make sure I get you on. Now, I've been promising this for a while. It takes a long time to add every single person as a contact and then make the group, but I am getting some help with this soon. So hopefully by the time you've listened to it, you've joined in the party, and eventually we can have that WhatsApp group that some of you have wanted. So do join that if you'd like to take part. Otherwise, I'll catch you in the next episode, which I'm going to keep a secret. But I'm going to tell you this. This episode is going to absolutely blow your mind. It's going to be sensational. It's someone very famous, and you will absolutely love it. And I'm going to keep it a bit of a secret. So I'll catch you in the next episode, same time, same place.